Hey everybody, JJ here. Back again with another Wednesday of Zoom networking. And today we've got a special time starting because our guest speaker is calling in from the great UK. Our guest speaker is an awesome guy. I love his personality. I've had the pleasure of meeting him in person a couple different times. You're going to love today's call. He's out of the Sub2 community, has his own community similar about creative finance, but related not to real estate, but to buying businesses. I'd like to introduce you guys to my good friend, Mr. Carl Allen. Carl, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm excited, brother. You're like the biggest rock star we've had on the call.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Keep the compliments coming. I like compliments.
yeah, I want to cover a couple things as we get going, but first of all, where in the world are you located? I usually ask where in the country you're located, but where are you located currently?
Yeah, so right now I'm in my country estate in England. I do spend more of my time, though, these days in the US. That's where I'm doing all my deals. That's where my community is primarily based. So if I'm not in England, I'm on the space coast of Florida, I've been there like 6 out of the last 8 weeks, but I'm here in the UK for a couple of weeks. So yeah, across the
Awesome.
pond.
You know, I um I love you, brother. As you know, we've met a
Thank you,
couple
man.
times. Um, what I really like about you is just you're just so real and genuine.
Thank you.
There's no pretense. You have an unbelievable, great, not only great personality, but such a generous heart. And as I say all the time, investment in business is about the people we surround ourselves with. It's not about the dollar.
That's
Um,
true.
hey, what I wanted to talk about really briefly before we get into you're at your wheelhouse, your field of expertise is we all get started at different times in life.
Yeah.
Some of us are fortunate to do it earlier in life. Some of us, like myself, do it later in life, but we get going. Um, I frequently say when we're 16, we can get a driver's license. When we're 18, we can vote. When we're 21, we can buy an alcoholic beverage. Depending in some countries, you can drink at 18. Um, what were you doing in your teens? You're doing creative finance for real estate. What were you doing early in life? Was this exposed to you earlier? Did it come later? If it came later, what were you
Yeah.
doing in your teens and your 20s?
Yeah. So I was just a normal kid when I was at school. I was a semi-pro soccer player. Went right through college, although we call it university in the UK. So I left university when I was 21, and I went to work on Wall Street. So what I've been doing in terms of buying businesses and being a creative financier for business acquisitions, I've been doing since 1992. So I'm in my 32nd year of doing this. I spent the first 15, 16 years of my career really as a corporate guy. So I worked for a Wall Street investment bank, Bank of America. Then I went to business school in Chicago. I went to work in private equity. And then my last real job was I was a director of mergers and acquisitions at HP, the technology company. And I was doing that, making a ton of money, flying all over the world. But then on the 1st of February 2008, my life completely changed in a heartbeat. So I was in Moscow working on a deal with HP, and we're at the closing table. We're buying a printing company for about $300 million. So decent deal. And do you remember the old Motorola Razor phones,
Yeah.
the flip phones? So I had one of those, and it was on the desk in the boardroom where I was trying to close this deal. And I don't know if you remember when they rang and vibrated, they would move along the table, right? So my wife's literally calling me every 30 seconds, and this phone's buzzing, and I'm trying to close this deal. So literally, I picked up the phone. I said, "Hey, I can't talk to you right now. I got to close this deal. Can I call you later?" She said, "No, I don't care what you're doing. I've got into labor 4 weeks early. You've got to get back to England right now, or you're going to miss the birth of your son," right? So I'm like, whoa. So literally, I had my phone, my wallet, and my passport with me. I ran out of the boardroom. My computer and my luggage I left there. I've never been back. I think it's still there, right? So I ran out, I got in a car, trying to hail a cab in the middle of Moscow. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Managed to get to the airport. My CEO from HP was there. He lent me his plane. I managed to get back to England, police escort from the airport to the hospital. And 10 minutes after I walked in, my little boy came out, right? So
Wow.
comes, and babies come with hats, JJ. I don't know if you know that. He's this little baby, and he's really tiny. He's 16 now, and he's huge, right? So I'm kind of cradling this little guy in my arms, and I just thought, you know what? I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'd made a lot of money. I saved. I was pretty frugal with my cash. So I thought, you know what? I was 37 at the time. I'm 53 now. I'm going to retire. So I retired. I walked away from millions and millions of dollars of stock options, but I didn't care, right? I wanted to be with my family. So I'm about 3 weeks in to being a dad, right? And I just thought, I need to work. Like, I'd gone from a million miles an hour flying all over the world doing deals to like changing diapers and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, well, what can I do? So I sat down with my wife, Julia, and I said, look, like, I got to do something. I'm going to go crazy. She said, well, you're the best in the world at buying businesses. Why can't you buy smaller businesses? And instead of doing billion-dollar deals as a corporate guy, just do $5 to $10 million deals. And my wife was a CPA, so she understood numbers and deals and stuff. So that's what I did. So I started buying my own companies. And what's really interesting, and we can get into this later, is when you're doing Wall Street deals, it's a lot more about math than it is about psychology, right? When you're buying a small business from a retiring baby boomer, or you're buying an e-com business from an entrepreneur that's got it to 3 million but doesn't know how to scale even further, it's a game of psychology. It's not a game of math. It's all about motivation, building rapport, and understanding where that seller's coming from. And then you can put a creative deal together that's a win-win for both sides. So I started doing all that. And then about 8 years ago, I was on a plane with my attorney going to buy a company in Australia, believe it or not. And he said to me, you should teach this stuff. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, you should teach this stuff. This stuff's like really cool. Like, you should teach it. So I started a community called Dealmaker Wealth Society. And today we've trained over 22,000 students all over the world. My inner circle mentorship, which is called Protege, you're in it. Mm-hmm. A couple of other people that I see on this call are in it as well. That community, it's only 18 months old, and we've done over $600 million worth of acquisitions.
Wow.
Which is phenomenal, right? So I had a 5-year goal to do $1 billion worth of deals with my community, and I think we'll hit that maybe even by the end of this year. There's some people doing some crazy things. So today I really do two things. I coach my community, and then I also have a private equity fund, and I'm doing roll-ups. I'm doing a roll-up in home services. I'm doing a roll-up in the medical space. I'm doing a roll-up in the e-com space, and I'm also rolling up in the coaching industry.
Now, so Carl, let me ask you. We have some very experienced investors on the call. We have some brand new investors on the call, and this is going to go on to YouTube to be seen weeks and months down the road, if not years down the road. But for those that are new to investment and don't understand some of the terminology, what's a roll-up?
So roll-up is where you buy multiple companies within the same niche. And then when you integrate them together properly, there's lots of financial synergies and benefits that you get, which drive stronger cash flow out of a group. So imagine if you bought a hair salon, for example. So you owned one hair salon, you might pay $50 to the supplier for shampoo, right? If you own 20 of those, you'll pay $10 per unit. So all of those cost synergies all go into your cash flow. And then the other thing you can do as well with a roll-up is if you buy two businesses that are complementary. So let's say you buy a plumbing company, then you buy an electrical contracting company, and they're in the same town, you can cross-sell those services between those two customer bases for zero cost of marketing because you've already bought that company, you own the customers. So you're not spending on marketing, whether it's ads or radio or whatever. So you can generate more revenue at a much higher margin because you're not having to pay to acquire the customer. So there's a whole bunch of things you can do when you consolidate lots of different businesses within the same niche. And this is a big thing that I teach inside of my protege community, my dealmaker community. It's go pick a niche that's really you've got knowledge of, you're passionate about, you can add a lot of value, and then just go and hoover up lots and lots of smaller businesses in that space. And then when you get it to $20 million in revenues, then private equity will come and buy from you at really, really high multiples. So that's a lot of the stuff that we teach inside the program.
So Carl, I don't want to cut you off. I want to let you keep going, but I've got a question is when your students come in, and I know, that I've come into your program and I really want to focus more on it. I've building a house right now. I've got multiple shopping centers that I'm running, and I need to get the time to get back in with your program. But what are, other than lack of time, what are some of the hurdles that some of these newer, less experienced students face?
Yeah. So let's talk about time real quick. Like we've all got the same amount of time. Like one of the really first things we do with people that come into the program is we have them do a time audit, right? So we show them where they're wasting their time. And you need 6 to 8 hours a week to really execute and nail on being a business acquirer. So the first thing we do is we save you 6 to 8 hours of your time so you can give that back to the community to do these deals. But then the second thing, that one of the hurdles that we see a lot is mindset, right? So there's a lot of limiting beliefs that people have when they first come into the program. The first limiting belief that they have is, if I want to buy $1 million business, I need to rock up with $1 million check. You don't. Like, you can buy real estate using other people's money. It's exactly the same when you're buying a business. You can get investors, you can get lenders. Whereas real estate is a physical asset, businesses have cash flow, right? So if you were doing an Airbnb or some rental property, you can raise capital off the cash flow that asset is going to generate, right? In a business, you'll generate way more cash flow than you will in a piece of real estate, right? And that's called profit, right? So the more profit a business has, actually the easier it is to buy it, because the more money that you can raise to be able to do that deal. So that's the first limiting belief. The second limiting belief, and this is the big one, is people think, well, if I buy a business, I've got to go in and I've got to run it. You don't, right? I own 26 companies today. I don't work in any of them. They would fail if I worked in those businesses because I'm not an operator, right? I don't drive the bus. So yeah, I'll work on the culture. I'll work on the strategy. I'll go and buy more businesses to integrate. But I have management teams in those businesses that are doing all the work. And that's really, really important, because what that means to you as a deal maker is you can buy businesses anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter, right? People think, oh, I live in LA, so I've got to buy a company in LA and I don't want to drive more than 30 minutes. If you want to be an owner operator, that's fine, right? Some people want to do that. But if you want to build a portfolio and you want to leverage your time better, you can partner with other people to operate your businesses for you. So my typical model is I'll buy a business and I'm never using my own money. I have an equity fund that I've raised, which is about 100 million. And then I have debt partners. I have access to over $1 billion in debt. So I can buy pretty much any business. But then when I buy that business, I will put in an operator and I'll give them 10 to 20% of the ownership, which you think, well, wow, that's a bit generous. But it's not, because if you think about it, they're driving my value, right? Mm-hmm. And when you make an operator a partner, it psychologically changes the game for them, because they're no longer just an employee, maybe with a profit share. They're your business partner, and they're going to run through those walls, and they're going to run a lot harder to make that really, really successful. And it's been a very successful model for me over the past 14 or 15 years. And in some cases, I bought a business once, JJ, very close to you in Burbank. It was a marketing agency, and it was a very complicated business. It had a lot of stuff going on inside of it. I found a GM to run that business for me, and I gave him 40% of the ownership. And he's like, man, are you nuts? I'm like, no, because you're going to run this thing. You're going to 3x the value, and then we're going to sell it, right? You're going to do all the work. So why wouldn't I give you a gigantic piece of ownership? So that's typically what I do.
Let me ask you something on that. If you 3x the value and you sell the business, what happens to the guy that's running? Does he go with the business?
Sometimes he does, but he might cash out alongside of me. Like the deal in LA wasn't a big deal. We bought it for $2 million. We sold it for $6 million. So he got nearly $3 million. The buyer didn't need him, but he exited with $3 million and went off and bought a whole bunch of other companies with it. So yeah, sometimes they stay, sometimes they don't. It depends on what the buyer has in terms of their own management team and whether that person is needed or not.
Okay, we got a question in the chat that I just wanted to jump on really quick from Kay, but she asked, what's a debt partner?
Yeah, so think real estate. When you're buying real estate, you've got some equity cash that's going in from you or an investor, and then you're borrowing some money from a bank or a hard money lender or something else. So a debt partner is exactly that. It's money that you're borrowing from a bank or an institution or a person that you're going to be paying back over time, with interest, right? An equity partner is different. Equity partners are coming into the deal with you. They're only going to get their money back and hopefully more when you sell or liquidate that asset or that business sometime in the future.
Caesar, you're on with Carl Allen. What's your question?
Hey, man.
Hi, Carl. It's a pleasure and honor to be talking to somebody of your stature.
You're welcome. Thank you very much indeed. I appreciate the kind words.
Okay. First question. I'm looking at some businesses at the moment, and I'm trying to determine whether, what amount of cash flow would be the amount that I would need to draw the line at to pay back the debt after all expenses are paid.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
And then my other question is, I'm thinking about an equity partner more so than a debt partner. And in your first business, what would you recommend? I've owned businesses before. I sold them. I don't own anymore now. I'm just owner of commercial real estate, but I'm at a point where I want to purchase more businesses now.
Yeah.
And so I guess those are my two questions right now, not to take up everybody's.
Yeah, perfect. So let's go to the first question. So it all comes down to size, right? So you absolutely don't want to be buying any business less than $1 million in annual revenues. The reason being, if you buy a really small business, you're typically buying a job from somebody else, right? So when you get to $1 million or more in terms of revenue, then that business has got likely a lot of employees, it's got systems and processes. So you can buy it and you don't have to run it. There's a team that will run that business for you. And then normally I don't buy any company less than 15% profit margin. So the absolute minimum cash flow that the business should be doing is at least $150,000, ideally more like $250,000. So, when you've got a business doing $250,000 in cash flow, then it's a lot easier to buy, it's a lot easier to operate, and it's a lot easier to transition. So I think for you as well, being somebody that's done this before, one of the filters that you should have in your buy box is, and I don't know what sectors you're looking into next, we can go into that in a minute, but for you, because you know what you're doing, I wouldn't be doing deals less than $250,000 a year in cash flow. And then what we do when we're looking at, and I have a model that I'll send you that calculates this, is we work on something called debt service cover ratio. So very similar to real estate. So what we're looking to do is say, well, how much cash flow does this business generate today? Whatever that is, call it $300,000. And then what's my debt service to pay back the bank, the seller note, the interest, and all those things? Let's say that's 200, right? So we've got 300 cash flow coming in. 200 cash flow going out. So our debt service cover ratio is 1.5. So 1.5 is the golden number. If you go to a bank or you go to the SBA 7A lending program, they'll do deals around the 1.25 range. But I always use 1.5 because I like doing really safe deals. Deals I don't need to worry about, deals that cash flow, deals that are not going to be a problem for me going forward. And there's millions of businesses out there that are like that. Now you talk about equity, right? The problem with an equity partner, sometimes in deals you need a little bit of equity. But what you should be doing at all times is minimizing the equity that you bring in and maximizing the debt, right? Because equity dilutes your ownership, right? So let's say you're buying a business and it's doing $300,000 a year in cash flow, and we agreed to pay a 2x multiple to buy that business, right? So that's a $600,000 acquisition, right? And let's say you've agreed to pay half of it at close, 300K, and half of it in seller financing over, say, 5 years, right? Now that 300K in cash you got to bring to the closing table, if you go and raise that as equity, your equity investor is going to want half of the business, right? Whereas if you go and raise $50,000 of equity, and then that will allow you to raise $250,000 in bank debt, then you might only have to give away 15% of the company. So debt, always think of debt as your ability to keep more ownership of the business that you're buying, but equity investors will dilute you. Now, in some cases, equity investors can be very beneficial to you and the business, right? They might have a network that they can plug into your business that can really, really make it fly. About 10 years ago in England, I bought a company that manufactured soup for like fast food retail. So like you got Panera Bread in the US, right? They don't make their own soup, right? They buy that soup from a supplier. So I used to have a company that made that soup. And there was a big, like the Panera Bread of the UK is a company called Greggs. They've got like 7,000 retail units all over the country. And I got an equity investor to partner with me in that deal. And I gave him half of the company because he played golf with the buyer of this company, Greggs, right? So literally we did the deal within 4 weeks. I had a contract for 5 years to supply all the soup into Greggs. It 4x'd the revenue in my company. And then I ended up selling it to a larger competitor that couldn't get that contract, right? So sometimes an equity partner is not just about the capital to help you buy the business. It's about the value that they can bring to the business once you've bought it. But the general rule of thumb is try and limit your equity in a deal, because then you'll be able to keep more of the ownership for yourself.
Great answers. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I said just one little quick caveat question. I did notice that I believe it's your post that you have a book out that just the 10 days to buy a business. Is that yours?
Yeah.
And I think it's like $65. Is that something just to get, for a beginner, just to look at and then actually talk to you
it is
finalize the deal?
Yeah. So the reason we did the 10-day challenge was to give people a really strong taste of what life as a deal maker is like. So it's not just pure education. Obviously, there's some stuff I need to teach you about how to define a buy box, how to originate on-market and off-market deals, how to meet and talk to sellers, how to raise capital, how to put deals together. I teach you all that stuff, but I do it in the context of I'm sending you out into the marketplace to do it, right? And then what happens in those 10 days is one of two things, right? You're either absolutely blown away by this, you love the action, you love getting into the market and talking to sellers. And then what you do is you say, well, great, I love this, but now I want to join a community like Sub2. I want to be coached 5 or 6 times a week. I want all Carl's resources, his capital providers, all of his legal docs, all of his ninja tools that I can't teach you in 10 days. Or some people say, you know what, this is not for me. This was cool and all, but I don't see myself as a deal maker buying tons and tons of companies. So that's why we do it. So, and for us, it's a filter, right? It's a filter. And the people that go through that 10 days, we're monitoring them. We have an AI tool that monitors everybody, their interaction, what they do. And then I can vet from that activity who I think is going to be a great protege candidate. And the reason I built Protege, and it's exactly the same as Pace. The reason Pace built Sub2 was not to make money coaching. He wanted business partners, but he wanted to indoctrinate them in his way of creative financing. That's exactly why I built Protege. Protege is my training ground for my partners. All the 26 companies I own today, I've bought with my own students. So I have to indoctrinate them in my training to my way of originating deals and funding deals and putting them together, rather than me have to pick a random partner and spend months teaching them how I do things. I put them through my mentorship. They get coaching, they get all the tools. Some of them go off and they do their own deals, but some of them will bring deals to me and then I'll partner with them. Which is what I do. So that's the difference between the 10-day and my version of Sub2, if you will, which is called Dealmaker Protege.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Carl, can I share briefly the post on Facebook of your 10-day challenge? Can I share that again?
Of course you can, yeah.
If you could briefly sort of explain to people about that. You did touch on it, but I want to let you touch on it again if you may.
What I do in the 10 days is you spend 30 to 45 minutes a day going through the 10 key elements of completing a business acquisition. And it's there to give you a taste of what this is like, but by putting you out into the market and doing the stuff, right? So it's not just pure coaching. I'm literally having you go and do the things I need you to do. So it's a mini execution program. And as I mentioned to Cesar, you're going to come out of those 10 days either, yeah, this is for me, I love this, but I need a lot more coaching and a lot more knowledge and a lot more support and mentorship. Those people, we vet them. If we like them, we put them into Protege. Or some people come out of those 10 days and think, well, yeah, it was great, but I'd rather do real estate, or I'd rather do crypto, or I'd rather do something else. So it's a great kind of like primer to what it's like. And we've put over 20,000 people through that program in the last 5 or 6 years. And we've had people come out of that, come into the mentorship, and they've made 9 figures.
Wow.
Abraham Gray, who most of you know, who's a prolific real estate investor in Sub2, he's been in my community for a long time, and he's bought over 100 companies.
Wow.
And he's my business partner now. We've done deals together. We have an event called Dealmaker Weekend, JJ, where I met you. And, we put that on to teach people really, really cool stuff. So, yeah, the 10 days is really a primer for this whole world of business acquisitions. And what's really interesting about buying businesses, it's very similar to buying real estate, right? If you're a real estate investor, you already got a lot of the skills that you need to be a business acquirer, right? You know how to hunt deals down. You know how to creatively finance acquisitions. You know how to build relationships and build rapport. And you've got the mindset and the grit to close a deal, right? So if you can do a real estate deal, you can buy a business, right? Actually, buying a business is easier. And a business will cash flow typically a lot more than real estate. But real estate, you buy it and you leave it, right? A business, you gotta work on the business, right? You got to get people inside of it to help you run it, and you got to do all of those different things. So there are a few little kind of nuances between the two, but in terms of a skill set, a creative real estate person and a creative business acquirer, very, very similar.
Ty Fuji, you're on with Carl Allen. What's your question?
Hey,
Hey,
Carl,
man.
JJ, thanks for putting this on. I learned
No worries.
already a ton from the first question, but I have two questions. One is, if you knowing what you know now, is there a good tip that you would have for finding off-market business deals? My partner and I were looking through just commercial brokers and things like that, but that's always a challenge when you have to go through a broker. So we're also trying to find out ways to get leads to off-market
Yeah.
buyers. That's my first question, and I'll hold it for my second.
Yeah, great. So off-market deals are where the magic happens, right? And you've alluded to business brokers. So the business brokers community in the United States is very fractured. It's heavily unregulated, and some of these people are really good, but most of them are a pain in the butt, right? They overvalue businesses. They don't let you get one-on-one with sellers. They get in the way, and they can generally just be a pain in the butt, right? So I don't buy businesses from brokers, right? So I have an off-market deal origination machine, because if you look at a business off-market, there is no broker involved. You can build incredible relationships with sellers, and really that's where the magic happens. The more rapport, the more trust, like, and credibility that you can build with a seller, the more creative that you can get in terms of the deal structure and how you're actually going to finance it. So let me teach you the 3 ways real quick on how to get off-market deal flow. So the first thing that we do is we leverage a lot of social media. So if you go back to the 90s, right, when I worked on the 34th floor of a Wall Street investment bank, there was no Facebook, there was no LinkedIn, there was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, there wasn't even an internet, right? There were no blogs, no forums, there were no communities online where people would congregate, either per industry. Like, you can pick any industry in the United States and pretty much any city. If you wanted to buy a web design agency in Chicago, there's a LinkedIn group and there's a Facebook group for that, right? So you can go into those groups and you can get deals, right? LinkedIn is probably the most powerful tool for off-market deal origination, and it's free, right? You connect to a whole bunch of people. You can hire a VA to connect you to business owners in sectors that you want to target, or you can join the groups. And in my 10-day challenge, I have a LinkedIn post that you can basically just swipe, put it in your own profile, change the verbiage to your buy box. Takes about 10 seconds. You hit send. You wake up the following day, you'll have 20 to 30 deals sent to you from people inside of your network. So social media is a big one. The second big one is a strategy that I perfected, and I've been perfecting it over nearly 20 years. It's called the direct approach, right? So it's letters that we write to business owners inquiring about whether or not they want to sell their business. So what we do, we have an algorithm inside of our community where we're picking hot sectors like home services. We're filtering by age. So if I want to buy a home services business in, say, Atlanta, my software will tell me all the owners that are over 60 and will write to those business owners, right? And what we do in the letters is, it's not a generic letter that says, hey, Ty, I want to buy your company, please call me. It's very kind of rapport building. So we say, hey, Ty, I'm Carl Allen. I'm looking to buy a home services business just like yours. I've researched your business. I really like A, B, C. I have an AI tool that does that now, or you can have a VA from the Philippines, go on the website, pick out the cool stuff and put it in the letter. And then what we do is we find them online. You'll be surprised how many 60-plus-year-old business owners are on Facebook. And then we'll find things about them personally that we can relate to. It might be a restaurant that they dined at. They might love red wine. They might be a great fan of the Dodgers, like JJ. And then you can build rapport in the letter by saying, hey, I'm Carl. I really like your business. Here's why. Oh, and by the way, I see you're a Dodgers fan. Like, what a great win we had the other day, right? You're building rapport on a piece of paper. And what that does, that letter, all it's designed to do is sell the phone call back to you. You're not trying to buy the business in that letter. What you're doing is you're driving the conversion to a phone call where, let's say I wrote to JJ and he had a business and he was tired and wanted to sell. And he knows I'm a Dodgers fan. He's gonna call me, right? Because it's the Dodgers, right? Or it could be the Knicks. It could be anything, right? You could talk about grandchildren. You could talk about dogs, cats, crocodiles, or alligators. Doesn't matter. You're building a connection. So then when you talk to that person, then you can set up a meeting. You can go and see them, get their numbers, and do all those different things. That is gangster as a strategy. And then the third thing that we do, which is my personal favorite, is we build something called a deal intermediary network. So if you're a business owner and you're thinking about selling your business, before you go anywhere near a business brokers only account for about 20% of all the deals that are typically available. 80% are off-market deals, right? Those 80%, before they decide to sell, they talk to 4 people. They talk to their CPA, they talk to their attorney, they talk to their wealth manager, and they talk to their bank, right? So if you build connections either on LinkedIn or you go to networking events or you just call people and go and have a coffee with them, if you're networking with local bankers, CPAs, attorneys, and wealth managers are the best, they're going to send you deal flow, right? You call up a wealth manager, you say, hey, I'm looking to buy businesses in whatever niche. If you have a seller, you have a business owner that's looking to exit, I can do an off-market deal and save them 10% in broker fees. The wealth manager is going to help you because when you buy that business, the owner is going to take that cash and invest it with the wealth manager in the markets, right? So when you use these deal intermediaries, it's all about what's in it for them. Sometimes you can pay them a finder's fee if they bring you deals, but generally, all those intermediaries that we talked about, there's a benefit for them of doing a deal that you don't have to pay for. So in between social media outreach that we talked about, in between doing direct approaches or even direct emails, and then by building a network of people that have access to deals, that's how we cultivate lots and lots of off-market deal flow. But that takes a little bit of time, right? From a standing start, might take you 30 to 45 days to really build up that network and really start to see a lot of that deal flow coming through. Whereas with brokers, the business is for sale because they're listed with a broker. But to the point I made earlier, brokers can be a pain in the butt. Some of them are good, most of them are not. And for that reason, I would rather go off market.
Okay, awesome. That's great info. And then my second question is a little bit abstract, but if you were going to buy one business in the next 6 months and you're looking in like the entertainment industry, like California, Las Vegas type of area, where would you look?
Yeah, so I'm probably buying about 10 businesses in the next 6 months, but none of them, I don't think any of them in Vegas. So for me, it all comes down to your buy box, right? Like, there's two big criteria when you're looking at picking businesses to buy. One is you want to buy businesses in kind of hot markets like home services, construction, engineering, e-com, SaaS businesses, anything in the medical industry. Med spas are a great business to buy right now.
That's what I'm looking at, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to pick a hot sector that's got a lot of action, a lot of attention, but then also you want to be thinking about your own kind of criteria. So what industries do you know? What industries are you passionate about? And what industries can you add value to? Now, I'm not saying you can't buy a business if you're not from that wheelhouse, not from that world. You can, but my advice would be to go and partner with somebody that's got the chops in that marketplace, because number one, it's going to help you close the deal. You're going to be more attractive to a seller. Like if you want to do we'll talk about annuity deals in a minute, but I've perfected a strategy where you can buy a business like you would lease a car, right? You can buy that business in a day, no external financing is going in. You're just taking over the business and you're sharing the cash flow over time. If you're not from that world, the seller's going to think, well, is this person really going to execute on this business so I'm going to get my money, right? If you're from that industry and you can talk about the industry and the niche and how you're going to grow it and the value that you're going to bring, that seller's going to be more inclined to want to do that deal with you. But if you find a deal and you're not from that space, just go partner with somebody. In fact, I'd say more than half of my protege students are partnering with other students, right? One might be an operator, the other one might be a deal maker. One might be absolutely rock solid as like a CFO. The other one might be just really good at marketing, and they're all coming together. I'd say about 55% of all the deals that are closing right now inside of my community are where people are coming together and they're combining their skills and combining their experiences. But staying in your lane is a key piece of advice, but then also picking a really cool market that's doing very well in the industry. And med spas will be a great example of that.
Okay, thank you.
Claudia, you're on with Carl Allen. What's your question?
Well, he just kind of answered my question. It was about, I know about real estate. How do I jump into something else? So I guess the credibility would be joining with someone else. So since he's
I got another idea for you, though. I got another idea for you. If real estate is your wheelhouse, right? There are lots of businesses you can buy that are associated with real estate, right? So you could buy trailer parks, you could buy storage units, you could buy a title company, and you could buy home services businesses that you can deploy into your real estate portfolio. So when I became buddies with Pace and started speaking at Pace's events, there's all these real estate people saying, yeah, well, I don't know what business I want to buy. I said, well, okay, well, tell me about what you do. They said, well, we do fix and flips, right? We buy these houses and we buy them way below ARV. And then I got to get crews in. We got to reno these houses and then we sell them or make a profit. And I said, well, how's that going? They said, well, not great, because it's really hard to get crews to come and do the work. I said, so what kind of business should you buy? I don't know. Well, go and buy a company that flips houses. Go buy an electrical contractor. Go buy a plumbing company. Go buy a roofing business. Go buy a power washing company. Go and buy a pest control company. Buy businesses that you can put into your real estate portfolio that, number one, drives returns in your real estate portfolio. But number two, those businesses then will cash flow even more because you're putting more revenue into that business. And then if you have a whole bunch of these businesses and you're in a community like Sub2, then a lot of the Sub2 people would want to use your service, obviously if it's in the city or the metro where that is. So a lot of the Sub2 students that came into Protege, that's what they're doing. They're buying trailer parks, they're buying storage units, they're buying hotels and bars and restaurants, real estate backed businesses, but then they're also buying a lot of the services companies that they can then deploy into their portfolio.
I like that. Thank you. So the other side of the question is we have an opportunity to partner with somebody that has senior care facilities and to add dementia to it. What do you think about that industry?
Yeah, that is a great industry. It's typically a license industry. So you'd want to partner with somebody that has one of those licenses, but fear if they don't. What you can do, any business that is licensed, so HVAC, primary care, dementia, you want to buy a CPA firm, you want to buy an architectural practice, these are all license regulated businesses. You can just buy 80% or 90% and leave the owner in for a little bit of equity carry. And then as long as they're still in the operating agreement of the company, then the license will transfer to that as part of the ownership. So that's what I do. So I bought a HVAC company. I don't know anything about HVAC. I don't know anything at all. And the HVAC body said, well, you don't have a license, do you? No. I don't even know. I can plumb a toilet. I know nothing about that stuff. So I said to the guy, well, what would have to be true for me to buy this business? He said, well, just leave the owner with 20% of the equity, and then his license can transfer because he's still in the business. And that applies to every industry. The only industry that doesn't work in is the legal profession. The way the bar works in each state for lawyers and attorneys, all the owners have to be lawyers. So that's the only thing where that doesn't work. But every other industry, medical, dental, veterinary, you name it, you can buy a business, have a majority stake, as long as you keep the owner in with a piece of ownership, you can transfer their license.
Hi, Maggie.
Good to see
Hi,
you.
Carl. Hi, JJ. I saw the post on Sub2 when I was going through the Facebook last night, and of course, I have to come and support Carl because he is amazing. So, I just wanted to really jump on and say thank you to Carl for putting the community together. JJ, thank you for hosting this call because this, it's an unbelievable community. And I've been learning lots, applying everything that Carl mentioned as far as jumping in and taking action and speaking to sellers has applied to, what I'm currently doing. And this has really taken over my life. Like when he said, if you try it and you kind of like get a taste of it and you're like, you need more information, you'll know if this is for you or not. And the minute that I was exposed to this, I'm like, this is absolutely for me.
Awesome. Well, I love having you in the community. You add a ton of value, and it's great to see you. I saw you in the chat, and I thought I had to say hi.
Definitely.
Thank
definitely. You. Hey, Maggie,
I came over here to be your cheerleader. I'm like, yes, you have to be part of the community. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to chat.
David Bolton, you're on with Carl Allen. What's your question?
Hey,
Good morning, Carl. Carl, just to be quick, is there sectors of business that you would stay away from that you don't feel are profitable or worthwhile getting into and people wasting their time?
Yeah, so there is, but that's just my personal preference. I don't like businesses that are illegal. So I'd never get into the drug industry, the pornography industry, the gambling industry, or anything like that. I'm not a big fan of like restaurants. I've owned a couple of restaurants, didn't do great. Those are so people centric, especially with regards to the chefs. And the problem with buying a restaurant, right, is the cost to buy the real estate typically eats all of the cash flow that the business actually generates. But those are kind of the big ones. I don't like brick and mortar retail either. I'd rather buy online retail. But then as well, I don't like Amazon businesses. So there's a lot of businesses for sale that are pure Amazon online companies. And I don't like them because Amazon controls your customer, right? I think to have a great business, you have to be in control of your customer base so that you can remarket to them and you can nurture them and you can be good people. Amazon controls your customer. And if you launch on Amazon, granted, it's the biggest shop window in the world for products online. If you do really well, Amazon will compete against you. They'll create their own products called the Essentials range, and then they bury you in the algorithm so people can't see your offers, right? So those are the things that I don't like. So I don't like Amazon online. I don't like brick and mortar retail. I don't like anything illegal or suspicious like gambling. I don't like restaurants. And then the other thing that I tend to stay away from is any business under $1 million in revenues, and then any business under 15% profit margins, because you want to buy a business that's it's got some it's got some life and it's got those things. And one of the other filters I typically will plug in, not so much in the e-com space, is if I'm buying like an engineering business or a home services business, I look for businesses that are at least 10 years old, because only 4% of companies survive 10 years, right? 96% of businesses from starting up will die within 10 years' time. So if you buy a business that's 10 years old, it's going to make it, right? All the issues have been ironed out. All the problems have happened. You're just buying a stable, growing, cash flowing enterprise. So deal making is all about, David, it's about just taking all the risks off the table, right? The biggest risk you take off the table is buy a business with other people's money. That's risk number one. Risk number two is don't buy a business and run it. Buy a business and put somebody very qualified in to run it for you. That's risk number two. And then risk number three, buy a business that's at least $1 million, generating at least 15% profits, and then stay away from those industries that we talked about.
Is there any areas we could look at for case studies that you've done?
Oh my God, yeah, we'd be here for weeks. We'd be here.
Yeah, I know.
Do
you have like YouTube videos on something like that, or
yeah? So go to my go to @CarlAllenOfficial, either on YouTube or on Instagram, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of case studies of deals that I've done, but more importantly, deals that my students have done. The record deal in my community is $114 million. Bought the business, no money down, scaled it, exited for 9 figures. The case study of that is on YouTube, so you can go through all that stuff. And then I also love Andre Calgaru's comment. It's thinking, like, he made a really good point about thinking about businesses that are AI proof, right? So like, I'm not buying IT services companies anymore or recruitment companies because AI is massively going to impact those industries. But think about the home services market, right? AI can't plumb a toilet. AI can't rewire a house. AI can't fix a leaking roof. AI can't power wash a driveway. AI can't landscape or hardscape someone's lot, right? So there are a lot of businesses that are AI proof, but then I'm leveraging a lot of AI in a lot of the businesses that I own as well. So AI is really powerful as an enabler to growth and efficiency in a business, right? But yeah, there are just one or two industries that AI, I think, is going to decimate in the next decade, and I'm staying away from those for sure.
Great, thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Mark Presswood, you are on with Carl Allen. What's your question?
The napkin underwriting, like you said, the $1 million, 15%, basically. How do you get these business owners to kind of open up and share the real numbers? I'm looking at a medical operation, and like you said, keeping the owner on at 20% equity, as we could scale this thing up by getting 3 more physicians in there to do 3 times as much work as what was being done. So
yep.
It's just about getting the true real business numbers. I think they were hiding a lot of stuff in their, they got to keep their money,
Yeah, so that's a really good question, right? So, and I'm going to demonstrate this with my 2 cell phones. I have a US cell phone and a UK cell phone, right? So every business, Mark, has 2 sets of numbers, right? It has the tax numbers, which you send to the IRS, and as business owners, we're incentivized to have as low as an income as we can have, so that we're paying less tax. But then we have real numbers, right? We have real numbers. And that process is called recasting, right? You can partner with a CPA to do all that for you, or we have all the templates in our community that people use. And what we're doing is we're looking at what would happen, what's the business's true profitability if we bought it, right? So the owner's 15 family members that are on the payroll, but don't work in the business, right? All the personal expenses that the business owner puts through. Some of the things I've seen in income statements is hilarious, right? One guy had a plumbing company, and he had a yard where all the vans were, and he'd bought 3 pedigree dogs and he put them through his business because he said they were guard dogs, right? They'd never been anywhere near the business. They were French bulldogs. They weren't like Rottweilers or Dobermans or dogs that could hurt people. These were little chubby French bulldogs, right? But he put him through the business as an expense to pay less tax. But in reality, he wasn't really spending that money inside of the business. So that process of recasting gets us to an agreed set of numbers that we know are real. And, we can work with the seller's finance person, their CPA, their controller. But that's kind of like one of the key steps to underwriting, right? Step one is, does the deal fit your buy box? We just talked about that. Then point two is, what are the real numbers coming through this business? And then is it worth buying? And a financier is going to do the same process anyway, right? So if you go to a bank to borrow money to buy a company, they're going to go through the exact same process that you're doing, and they all know that it happens, right? So everybody knows that as business owners, that's what we do. We put our vacations through our business. We put our personal cars through our business. We put our cell phones through our business. All those are what are called add backs. So an add back is an adjustment to the profit, which reflects what's going to be true under new ownership.
I appreciate that. I mean, I completely agree on all that. I mean, this particular thing is a medical facility that does treatments, and we're thinking they could probably do about 20 grand a day.
20 grand a day, Mark, that's a $5 million revenue business. Medical facilities typically 40% margins. That's $2 million a year of cash flow. That's then going to be worth at least an 8 times multiple. So that's $16 million of enterprise value for a $400,000 investment. So, yeah.
Was there anybody really instrumental in your growth in this industry? Is there one or two people that just really helped escalate your path?
Yeah, there's too many to mention, really. Obviously, my parents, who no longer with us, but they were blue collar people, taught me the habits of hard work and graft and study and all those different things. A lot of the people that I worked with when I first went into mergers and acquisitions, when I was in investment banking, were really, really beneficial. But then my biggest inspiration today are my proteges, right? It's people like Maggie and Daniel and the 700 plus other people in that community that are showing up every day. They're doing the work, they're meeting sellers, they're putting offers together, and they're closing deals and making money. Those are the people that are inspiring me today. I have this incredible skill set that I've built over 32 years. And for me to package that and interject it into a really smart group of people that are hungry to learn and do deals and make money, I think that's the biggest compliment I can give. It's those guys helping me build a legacy by doing all the things that I'm teaching them how to do. So that's what inspires me today, JJ.
Well, I'm looking really forward to catching back up with you. I've just had a couple things on my plate. My mom passed a couple of years ago. I've had to restructure the family business, separate everything in half with my brother. And so just sort of retool while I keep everything going. But I definitely want to continue with our friendship, our relationship.
Absolutely.
And me being one of your proteges and earning the right to be considered such. I know the key to my success is surrounding myself with people such as yourself, and having met you, having the opportunity to sit and talk with you and get to know you. My biggest, I say it all the time, I'll buy a house or a business from anyone where the numbers make sense. I'll sell something to anyone whose money can clear escrow. But if I'm going to do business with someone, joint venture partner, private money lender, whatever it happens to be, they need to have the heart, character, integrity of someone I'm going to invite into my home to sit with my family. To me, you are that kind of person.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Hey, really quick, I've got 2 last questions. If people want to reach you, I've got some of your links here available. But if people want to reach you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so at Carl Allen Official on YouTube and Instagram, where I post a lot of content, and especially on Instagram, I'm always checking DMs and all those different things. Go and check that out. Instagram, same, at Carl Allen Official. That's me. Loads of stuff on there, and you can communicate with me on that as well. If you want to trial this, if you want to have a little bit of a play, getting out into the market, finding some deals, meeting some sellers, making some offers, I definitely recommend the 10-day challenge. I think it's $67. It's like a $2,000 program on M&A that you can access for the cost of a steak, and that's going to give you a primer and a taste of what life is like as a deal maker. And as we talked about it, you're either going to love it or you're not. So it's a great filter for me to want to coach you in the future. I think it's a great filter for you guys as well, as to whether or not this is something that you want to do as a diversification, obviously, away from real estate. Like, I remember first thing Pace ever asked me was, if you're an investor, should you buy real estate? Should you buy businesses? The answer is both, right? You can do great deals in both of those two things. And then I have this really sweet tax setup where I'll take a distribution out of one of my companies, and then I'll go and buy a piece of real estate and pay no tax. And then I'm just kicking that tax can down the road every time I'm trading out of my deals. So yeah, we'll teach you all that stuff inside of the community as well.
That's phenomenal. And again, you're now a part of my networking group, and I look forward to you sharing all of your opportunities with my group of 4,000, soon to be 5,000.
Right.
Just because I know you bring tremendous value. My last question before we click away, I've got a networking group. It's not short sales. It's not wholesaling. It's not, anything of a business nature, but it's networking. There are multiple education programs out there that have brand new investors coming to them, experienced investors coming to them. But all these education programs have a networking base for their community of Facebook or social media.
Yeah.
As a lot of people come to these communities and they're taking the education, they're on the Zoom calls, they're learning, but they're not always using social media to maximize their visibility and to network. From your standpoint, you've touched on this a number of times where I'm going with this, but from your standpoint of your experience, what is the importance of networking for the new or experienced investor to build their business?
Oh, it's massive, right? It's absolutely massive, right? I think about networking, and I think about community, and I think about collaboration like the armed forces, right? The US never sends one soldier into battle, right? They send an army, they send a platoon of people that all work together. And it's the sum of the parts is so much greater than the individuals, right? So being part of a community is so powerful, because then you're not doing this on your own. You can brainstorm with people, you can partner with people, you can be held accountable by other people. Some people have got skill sets and experiences and networks that other people don't. And when you collaborate and you connect all that together, it just creates a much richer environment to do anything, really, whether it's buying real estate, buying businesses, it doesn't matter. So community is massively powerful. Yeah. In fact, I don't call my program a program. I call it a community, because I think the community is really, where the value sits.
Yeah, and what I do love about your community is the fact that it, from my perspective, it is more personally oriented. There's so many other communities that are not, and people are just don't have the right motivation. They don't have the right incentive. They don't have the right goal to help the people. But I'm just biased because I love you.
Thank you, buddy.
That's just what it is. Hey, I really want to thank you for being on today. I will be following up with you in the next several days. If you guys are watching now on YouTube, please like Carl's video. Please put in the comments your takeaways on what you found informative or valuable, or how I can improve to bring you better content in the future. Again, if you want to reach out to Carl, he's got his Instagram, he's got his YouTube at Carl Allen. We've, of course, showed those earlier in the video, so you can go back and replay it and look at those links. If you want to connect with me, call me. If you're on the call right now, you got my phone number. Register for the group. Go to my website, jjazizian.com. Please register for the group. And look for more videos coming up on Flipside Up with JJ. Carl, we'll see them out there in the world of virtual, networking, right? Instagram and YouTube.
That's right.
Hey guys, if you're on the call right now, don't go away. I'm going to continue with you guys. Carl's going to may be with us for a minute or two, but Carl, thank you so much. Everybody else, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. See you soon. Thanks, JJ. Bye-bye.